The night was dark and heavy with rain. Cold winds moved through the empty streets. Most houses had their lights off and people were sleeping inside warm blankets. But out on the road, a small figure walked slowly, her clothes wet, her feet bare, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. She was not an ordinary child. Her skin had a soft silver tone, her hair shimmered in the dim light, and her blue eyes carried a strange glow. Anyone who looked at her would know something was different, something not of this world. But tonight, she was not proud of who she was. Tonight, she was only a lonely child, crying quietly in the rain. Her stepmother's words still echoed in her mind. "You are not my daughter. You are a curse. Get out of my house and never come back." The door had slammed behind her, and she had been pushed out without shoes, without food, without love. The house that once belonged to her real father was no longer her home. Her father was gone, lost in the Great War far away, and the woman who was supposed to care for her only hated her. The girl hugged herself tightly, trying to keep warm. Her small hands shook as the cold air bit into her skin. Each drop of rain felt like ice, but she kept walking. She whispered to herself, "If I can't find a home tonight, I will not survive till morning." In the distance, she saw a weak yellow light. A small house stood near the edge of the town, half hidden behind trees. Smoke came out from the chimney, and the smell of burning wood filled the air. The girl felt a tiny hope in her heart. Maybe someone inside would help her. Maybe someone would not throw her away. She walked up the muddy path, her feet leaving small marks on the ground. Her body was weak, but she forced herself forward. When she reached the door, she stopped. Her hand hovered in the air, afraid to knock. What if the person inside shouted at her? What if He called the men who hunted her kind, but she had no choice. The cold was too much, and her heart could not take the loneliness anymore. Finally, she knocked. A soft knock at first, then a little louder. The sound echoed inside the house, and soon, footsteps approached. The door opened slowly, and an old human man stood in the light. He was tall, with rough hands covered in grease and tired eyes. He looked like someone who had worked hard all his life. He stared at the strange child standing in the rain, and his eyebrows drew together in confusion. "What are you doing out here, girl?" he asked in a deep voice. The girl's lips trembled, her eyes filled with tears. She whispered, "Please, please let me stay. I have no one. Be my dad. I will not misbehave." The man froze, his eyes wide. The words hit him hard. He had never heard anything like it. This was no ordinary beggar child, no ordinary orphan. Her glowing eyes, her silver skin, everything about her was unnatural, and yet her voice was full of pain, full of truth. For a moment, silence filled the air. The man looked around, as if expecting someone else to appear, but the street was empty. Only the rain and wind moved. He looked back at her, unsure of what to do. He could slam the door and go back to his quiet life, or he could listen to this strange, broken child who begged for a father. The girl's knees weakened, and she almost fell on the doorstep. Her small body was trembling too much. Her lips had turned pale. She whispered again, softer this time, "Please, don't leave me outside. I will die." The man's heart, though rough from years of loneliness, could not stay cold. Something in her voice, something in her eyes, reminded him of his own daughter long ago. A daughter he had lost. A daughter he still missed every night. He sighed deeply, rubbing his forehead. "This is madness," he muttered, "but I can't let you die out here." He pulled the door wider and said, "Come in." The girl's eyes widened in relief, tears mixed with the rain on her face. She stepped inside, feeling the warmth of fire for the first time in many hours. Her small feet left drops of water on the wooden floor, but she did not care. She had a roof. She had a chance. She had hope. The man closed the door behind her. The sound of the rain outside was shut away. For the first time that night, the girl felt safe. But deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning. Her stepmother might have pushed her out, but others would come searching. The men in black suits, the hunters of her kind, they never gave up. She looked at the man who had opened his door, and in her heart she prayed, "Please, let him truly be my dad." The fire crackled, the storm raged outside, and in that small house on the edge of the town, a strange story had just begun. The house was small but filled with the smell of burning wood. Old tools hung on the walls, and a heavy jacket rested on the chair near the fire. The man who had opened the door was named Daniel, a mechanic who lived far from the busy city. He liked silence, he liked machines, and he liked being alone. But now in his quiet home stood a girl who did not belong. Daniel looked at her carefully, her silver skin shining faintly in the firelight, her glowing eyes full of fear. He had seen many strange things in his life. Broken engines, falling stars, even soldiers passing through during war, but never had he seen a child like this. The girl stood close to the fire, rubbing her hands together, steam rising from her wet clothes. She seemed fragile, but something about her felt powerful, like a storm hiding inside a whisper. Daniel crossed his arms and asked, "Who are you and why call me Dad?" His voice was rough but not cruel. The girl lifted her head slowly, her lips shaking. My name is Lyra," she said softly. "I have no family. My stepmother hates me. She threw me out. Please don't send me away. I promise I will not misbehave." Daniel frowned, confused and curious. Why would this strange child choose him, a man who had no wife, no children, no neighbors? Lyra's words were strange, but her eyes were honest. He saw the desperation of a child who had been betrayed too many times. He moved closer, his boots echoing on the wooden floor. "You can't just walk into a man's house and call him father," he said. "There must be a reason." Lyra's eyes filled with tears again. "My real father was human," she whispered. "But he went away. He never came back. I thought maybe you could take his place." The room fell silent. Daniel felt something heavy in his chest, a memory he kept buried. Many years ago, he had a little daughter too. She had brown hair and soft laughter, but sickness had taken her away, leaving only silence in his home. Since then, Daniel had lived like a machine, working, eating, sleeping, no family, no love. And now, this alien child had stepped into his life, calling him something he had not heard in years. "Dad," he turned away, hiding the pain in his face. "You don't know what you're asking, girl," he said. "Being a father is not just a word, it is a burden, it is sacrifice." Lyra stepped closer, her small feet still dripping water on the floor. "I know," she whispered. "I only want a home. I only want someone to care if I live or die." Daniel felt his throat tighten. Her words were simple, but they broke through his cold walls. He sat down heavily in his chair, rubbing his face. The fire crackled, filling the silence between them. Finally, he muttered, "Sit, eat something, warm yourself. I will decide later." Lyra's eyes lit up with a spark of hope. She sat carefully on the rug near the fire, folding her legs like a child who did not want to cause trouble. Daniel brought her a small bowl of soup, old bread on the side. She held the bowl with trembling hands, drinking slowly. Each sip was like life returning to her, warmth spreading through her weak body. She whispered, "Thank you, Dad." Daniel froze again, the word striking deep. He wanted to correct her, to tell her not to use that word, but the sound of it brought a forgotten comfort. It was dangerous, he knew, to let this girl stay. Her glowing eyes and strange appearance would attract attention. If soldiers or hunters discovered her, they would punish anyone who protected her. But as he watched her eat quietly, trying not to spill, he felt something soft awaken inside him, something he thought was dead. After she finished, Daniel asked, "Why did your stepmother hate you so much?" Lyra's face darkened, her hands tightened on the empty bowl. "Because I remind her of my father," she said. "And because I am not fully human. She says I am a monster. She says I should have never been born." Her voice broke at the last word, and Daniel's heart twisted. He wanted to shout that no child deserved such cruelty, but he held his tongue. Instead, he asked, "And why come here to me?" Lyra looked at him, her glowing eyes steady now. "I saw you once in the town," she whispered. "You fixed a boy's broken bicycle for free. Even when you had nothing, you helped. I thought, maybe you are kind enough to help me too." Daniel stared at her, stunned. He did not remember the moment, but she had noticed. She had chosen him for his small act of kindness. He sighed heavily, leaning back in his chair. "You are a strange child, Lyra," he said, "but maybe you are right." Outside, the storm began to slow, the rain turning into a soft driz. Zul. The house was warm, but both of them knew danger was not far. Somewhere beyond the trees, others were searching, others who would not show mercy. But for this night, at least, Lyra had found a place to rest, and Daniel, the lonely mechanic, had found someone to call him Dad. The fire burned brighter, as if sealing a silent promise between them. Neither of them spoke, but both knew life would never be the same again. The night grew calmer, but inside Daniel's small house, the silence was heavy. Lyra sat near the fire, her wet clothes now dry, her silver skin glowing faintly in the warmth. Daniel sat across from her, his arms folded, his eyes fixed on her face. He wanted answers, but he did not want to scare her. Still, he knew that a child like her did not just appear on a man's doorstep without reason. Finally, he spoke. "Lyra, you said your real father was human. Tell me the truth. What happened to him?" Lyra lowered her eyes, her fingers tracing the rough rug under her hands. She hesitated, as if afraid that speaking the truth would break her heart again. But Daniel's steady voice pushed her to continue. "My father was a soldier," she whispered. He fought in the Great War, not only between humans, but also between worlds. Daniel leaned forward, his brow furrowed. Between worlds, he repeated. You mean aliens? Lyra nodded slowly, the firelight reflecting in her glowing eyes. Yes, she said softly. My father met my mother far away, on her planet. He saved her from soldiers, and she saved him from death. They loved each other, even when both their peoples said it was wrong. Daniel felt a strange shiver at her words, a human soldier and an alien woman, joining in love despite the hatred around them. It sounded like a story from books, but the proof was sitting in front of him, alive, real, and trembling. Lyra continued, her voice breaking. My father brought my mother to Earth. He promised her safety. He promised me a life where I could be free. But when the war grew stronger, he was called back. He kissed me on the forehead, and he never returned. Her words hung in the air like a shadow. Daniel's heart clenched. He could almost see the picture in his mind, a brave soldier leaving behind his family, never to come home. Lyra wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, her small shoulders shaking. After he was gone, my mother grew weak. Earth's air was not kind to her. She passed away when I was still little. Her voice lowered even more. Then my father's wife, the woman he had married before he met my mother, she came into the house. She hated me from the first day. She said I was the shame of her life. She locked me away. She called me a creature. Daniel clenched his fists, anger burning inside him. No child should live with such cruelty. No child should be hated for something she could not choose. He asked softly, and tonight, she threw you out. Lyra nodded, her tears glistening like stars on her cheeks. She said if I stayed another night, she would sell me to the men in black suits. Daniel sat back, his chest tight. He had heard whispers about the men in black, secret hunters who searched for things not meant to be on Earth. People said they captured alien creatures, locked them away, experimented on them, and now they were after Lyra. Daniel's eyes hardened. If that's true, then they will not stop. They will come here. Lyra looked at him in fear, her small voice trembling. Will you give me to them like she wanted to? The question stabbed Daniel deeper than he expected. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, torn between fear and something he could not name. He remembered the sound of his own daughter's laugh, the way she had called him dad, the way she had looked at him with trust. And then he looked at Lyra, a stranger yet not a stranger, a child who had lost everything, asking only for one thing. No, he said firmly at last, his voice like stone, I will not hand you over. Lyra's eyes widened, her lips parted in shock. You mean, you will protect me? Daniel rubbed his forehead, sighing heavily. I don't know how, I don't even know what you are fully capable of, but if your father was human, then you are part of us. And if your mother loved him, then she trusted this world. I cannot betray that trust. Lyra's tears turned into small smiles, the first smile he had seen from her. She whispered, Thank you, Dad. The word hit him again, not with pain this time, but with something warmer, something that pushed away the cold in his chest. He looked away quickly, pretending not to hear, but deep inside, he did not reject the name. The fire flickered, shadows danced on the walls. Daniel knew that his quiet life was gone, replaced by a storm he could not control. But at the same time, he felt that fate had chosen him for a reason. Maybe it was not an accident that this alien child had come to his door. Maybe it was not an accident that he, a broken man, had been given another chance to be called father. Outside, the wind carried strange sounds through the trees. Lyra's ears twitched slightly, as if she could hear more than human ears. She turned to the window, whispering, They are coming. The hunters. They are close. Daniel stood, his hands tightening into fists. He looked at her glowing eyes, her trembling form, and he knew one thing. Her secrets of the past had opened a door to danger. And once it opened, there was no turning back. But he also knew something else. As long as she stood under his roof, she was his daughter. And he would fight for her, no matter what came through that door. The night was not over, and the real battle was only beginning. The night stretched long, and Daniel could not sleep. Lyra rested on the rug near the fire, her body curled like a small child who had finally found warmth. Her breathing was soft, but her glowing eyes flickered even while closed, as if dreams chased her in the dark. Daniel sat at his workbench, tools spread around, pretending to fix an old motor, but his thoughts were elsewhere. He could not stop thinking about her words, a human father, an alien mother, a cruel stepmother, and now secret hunters searching for her. It all sounded like madness, yet the proof was in his house, breathing, shivering, alive. He whispered to himself, what have I gotten into? But deep inside, he knew the answer. Fate had thrown this child into his life, and he could not push her away. Suddenly, a soft crack filled the room. Daniel looked over and saw Lyra shifting in her sleep, her hands glowing faintly. He frowned, wiping grease from his fingers, stepping closer, her small palms pressed against the wooden floor, and to his shock, the broken leg of the chair nearby repaired itself, the wood knitting together as if time moved backward. Daniel froze, his heart pounding. "What in the world?" he muttered, staring at the chair that was whole again. Lyra's glow faded, her breathing steady, as if nothing had happened. But Daniel knew now, this child carried powers beyond imagination. When morning came, the storm outside had passed. Golden sunlight touched the window, painting the room in soft warmth. Lyra opened her eyes slowly, blinking at the light. Daniel sat across from her, arms folded, his face stern. "Lyra," he said firmly, "what did you do last night?" Lyra tilted her head, confusion in her eyes. "What do you mean?" she asked softly. Daniel pointed at the chair. "That chair was broken. Now it isn't. I saw you fix it without touching tools, without nails, with your hands glowing like Fidio. I reflies." Lyra's cheeks turned pale, her hands tightened. "I didn't mean to," she whispered. "Sometimes it happens when I dream, sometimes when I am scared. My mother said it is a gift, but my stepmother said it is a curse." Daniel rubbed his forehead, pacing the floor. He had lived long enough to know people feared what they did not understand. If anyone saw Lyra do this, they would not call it a gift, they would call it danger, and the men in black would tear apart his home to capture her. "Listen carefully, girl," Daniel said in a low voice. "You cannot use that power where others can see it. Not ever, do you understand?" Lyra nodded quickly, fear shining in her glowing eyes. "I understand," she said, "but sometimes I cannot control it. It comes out when my heart is too full." Daniel sighed, staring at her trembling hands. "You're not just running from a cruel stepmother, are you? You're running from yourself too." Lyra lowered her head, ashamed. "Yes," she admitted. "I don't want to hurt anyone. I only want to belong, but people look at me like I'm a monster." Her words cut deep into Daniel's chest. He remembered the nights after his own daughter's death, when people looked at him with pity, whispering about his bad luck. He too had known the weight of being unwanted, different, broken. He walked over and placed a rough hand on her small shoulder. "You're not a monster, Lyra," he said. "You're a child, and children don't deserve to carry such heavy chains." Lyra's eyes filled with tears, but this time they were tears of relief. For the first time, someone did not call her cursed, someone did not call her creature. She whispered, "Thank you, Dad." And the words settled between them like a quiet promise. But outside, the world was not quiet. Daniel noticed tracks in the mud when he stepped out to gather firewood, boot prints too heavy, too sharp, moving through. Gauged the trees near his home, his stomach sank. He knew what it meant. The hunters were closer than he thought. He returned inside quickly, closing the door tight. Lyra looked at him with wide eyes, sensing his tension. "What is it?" she asked. Daniel shook his head. "Nothing you need to worry about yet," but his eyes betrayed the truth. Later that day, while Daniel worked on a broken generator, he cut his hand on a sharp piece of metal. Blood dripped down his palm, and he cursed under his breath. Before he could grab a rag, Lyra rushed forward, her hands glowing bright. "Wait," she said, pressing her palm gently over his wound. In seconds, the bleeding stopped. The skin closed, leaving only a faint scar. Daniel pulled his hand back in shock, staring at the unbroken skin. How did you do that?" he whispered. Lyra bit her lip nervously. "My mother could heal too. She said our people are made to fix what is broken, not destroy. I thought maybe I could help you too." For a long moment, Daniel could not speak. The warmth still lingered in his hand, not just from healing, but from the care behind it. He looked at her, truly looked at her, and saw not a burden, not a monster, but a child with gifts the world did not deserve. A child who wanted nothing more than to belong, he whispered to himself. Strange powers or not, she is mine to protect now. But deep in his mind, another thought grew heavy. If she could heal wounds, repair broken things, what else was she capable of? And would those hunters stop at anything to take her away? The fire burned low as the day turned to night again. Lyra sat quietly, watching the flames dance. Daniel cleaned his tools, but his mind was restless. He knew one truth now. Her powers were both her greatest gift and her greatest danger. And soon, the world outside would try to tear her from him, but he had already made his choice. Whatever came, he would stand as her father, no matter how strange her powers became. The morning sun rose weakly over the quiet town. Mist still curled around the trees, hiding the forest paths. Daniel stepped outside with a heavy heart, his boots sinking into damp earth. He looked down and saw the same tracks he had noticed the day before. Deep boot prints, not from farmers or children, but from men trained to march. He followed the marks a few steps, his chest tightening. They circled his house, they pressed into the mud near his fence, then vanished back into the trees. Whoever made them had been watching, waiting, measuring. Daniel clenched his fists, muttering under his breath, "The hunters are already here." Inside, Lyra sat at the table, her hands folded, her glowing eyes wide as she watched Daniel return. She sensed his worry even before he spoke. "Was someone here?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Daniel nodded slowly. "Men, soldiers maybe. They came in the night. They were watching us." Lyra's small body shivered, her lips trembling. "They will not stop," she whispered. "They will keep coming until they find me." Daniel set his jaw, moving to the window, scanning the trees. His mind worked like a machine, measuring risks, building plans. He had survived wars, loss, and loneliness, but now he faced something far greater. He turned to Lyra, speaking firmly. "If they come, you stay behind me, no matter what happens." Lyra looked at him with shining eyes. "But they are hunting me, not you." Daniel's voice hardened. "Doesn't matter. You're my daughter now, and no man will take you while I live." For a moment, silence filled the small room, broken only by the crackle of fire. Lyra's heart filled with warmth and fear at the same time. No one had ever stood for her. No one had ever claimed her as family until now. She whispered, "Thank you, Dad." And the words sounded stronger this time. That afternoon, Daniel went into town for supplies. The marketplace buzzed with gossip, whispers of strangers in black suits moving from door to door. One old man muttered, "They ask too many questions, not about food or trade, but about children, about people who don't belong." Daniel kept his face calm, but his stomach churned. The hunters were not hiding anymore. They were searching openly, and soon their path would lead straight to him. He returned home quickly, carrying bags of food and spare fuel. Lyra met him at the door, her small hands clutching the frame. "Did you see them?" she asked. Daniel placed the bags down, breathing heavily. "Yes, they're close, too close." That night, the quiet was broken by the sound of an engine in the distance. A black vehicle rolled down the dirt road, its lights cutting through the dark. Daniel watched from the window, his heart pounding. The car slowed, stopping near his fence. Two men stepped out, dressed in dark coats, their movements sharp, their eyes cold. They walked slowly around, scanning the land with devices that beeped faintly. Daniel grabbed his shotgun from the wall, loading it with shaking hands. Lyra pulled at his arm, her voice trembling. "Please don't fight them, they will hurt you." Daniel looked down at her glowing eyes, his voice firm. A father's duty is to protect his child, no matter the cost. The men reached the door and knocked firmly. The sound echoed through the house, loud and heavy. Daniel tightened his grip on the weapon, his chest rising with slow breaths. "Stay behind me," he whispered to Lyra, pushing her gently toward the shadows. She hid near the fireplace, clutching the edge of the rug, her body trembling, her heart racing. The knock came again, sharper this time. Finally, Daniel opened the door a crack, his eyes cold, his voice steady. "What do you want?" One of the men smiled faintly, though it carried no warmth. "Good evening, sir. We're looking for someone, a child unusual in appearance. Have you seen anything strange around here?" Daniel shook his head firmly. "No child lives here, only me." The second man stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. "Our instruments show unusual energy nearby, are you sure?" Daniel's jaw tightened, his hand gripping the shotgun hidden behind the door. "I said, I live alone. Now leave." The first man's smile faded, his voice turning cold. "We will check again tomorrow, sir. Don't make the mistake of hiding what does not belong." They turned, walking back to their vehicle, the engine roaring as it disappeared into the misty night. Daniel shut the door quickly, bolting it. Lyra rushed to him, her voice shaking. "They know. They will come back." Daniel knelt down, gripping her shoulders, his voice low but strong. "Let them come. I will not let them take you, not while I breathe." Lyra's eyes filled with tears, glowing brighter in the firelight. Her heart ached with fear, but also burned with something new, hope. For the first time, someone stood between her and the darkness. For the first time, she had a father who would fight for her. But Daniel knew the truth. The hunters would not stop, they would return. And next time they would not knock. The battle was coming closer with every passing hour, and he had to be ready, not just for himself, but for the child who now carried his heart. Outside, the forest grew silent, the air heavy with coming danger. The hunters had marked their path, and soon the quiet mechanic's house would become the center of a storm. The night passed without rest. Daniel sat in his chair, the shotgun across his knees, his eyes never leaving the window. Lyra slept lightly by the fire, waking often, her glowing eyes opening wide at every sound outside. The silence of the forest was no comfort. It felt like the calm before a storm. By morning, Daniel's decision was clear in his heart. He could no longer pretend this was a passing danger. The hunters had marked his home, they would return, and next time they would come with force. He stood slowly, stretching his tired body, his voice steady as he spoke. "Lyra, we need to prepare." Lyra rubbed her eyes, her silver hair falling over her face. "Prepare for what?" she asked softly, though deep down she already knew. Daniel's voice was firm. For them, for the moment, they stop asking questions and start breaking down doors. The day was spent in quiet work. Daniel checked every window, secured the doors, and fixed the weak spots in the walls. He moved supplies into the cellar: food, water, fuel, and tools. Lyra followed him silently, her heart heavy. She had run before, from her stepmother, from her neighbors, always hiding, always afraid. But now, for the first time, someone was standing with her, instead of pushing her away. As evening fell, the distant sound of engines returned. This time it was louder, heavier. Daniel looked out the window and saw not one, but 3 black vehicles stopping at the edge of the path. Doors opened. Men in black coats stepped out, their movements sharp, their eyes scanning like predators. Lyra gasped, her body trembling. They brought more. Daniel placed a rough hand on her shoulder, his eyes hard. "They will not touch you," he said firmly. "Not while I live." The men approached the house, spreading out, some moving into the trees, others walking toward the door. Daniel stood in the center of the room, his shotgun loaded, his heart steady. The knock came, louder this time, heavy fists pounding on the wood. "Open the door," a voice demanded, cold and sharp. "This is your last warning." Lyra clutched Daniel's sleeve, her voice breaking. "Please, Dad, don't fight them. They will kill you." Daniel looked down at her, his rough face softening. "I've lived a long life, Lyra," he said quietly. "A lonely one, empty after my daughter was taken from me. But fate gave me another chance, and I will not throw it away. I will not throw you away." Tears streamed down Lyra's face, her glowing eyes burning with sorrow and love. She whispered, "Then I will stand with you." But Daniel shook his head, guiding her gently toward the cellar door. "No, you hide. You stay quiet. Promise me you will not come out until it is safe." She hesitated, her small body trembling, but finally she nodded. "I promise," she whispered, though her heart screamed to stay by his side. Daniel opened the cellar hatch, pushing her down gently, his voice steady. "Whatever happens, remember this. You are not a curse. You are not a monster. You are my daughter, and I will always be your father." The hatch closed softly, the lock clicking into place. Lyra sat in the darkness, her hands pressed to her chest, her heart pounding. She could hear everything above, the men outside, the creak of boots, the shifting of weapons. The knock came one last time, and when Daniel did not answer, the door burst open. The hunters stormed in, their black coats sweeping through the room, their eyes sharp. Daniel stood tall, the shotgun in his hands, his voice steady as stone. "You will not find her here," he said coldly. "Leave now." One of the men stepped forward, his lips curling in a cold smile. "We know she is here, old man. Our instruments do not lie." Daniel's grip tightened, his finger brushing the trigger. "Then your instruments are broken, because you will not take her." The room filled with tension, the hunters raising their weapons, Daniel holding his ground. The leader's voice turned sharp. "Do not sacrifice yourself for something that is not even human." Daniel's eyes blazed, his voice booming. "She is my daughter. That is all that matters." The hunters hesitated, surprised by his defiance. For a brief moment, silence stretched like a blade between them. Then chaos erupted, shouts filling the air as the men surged forward. From the cellar, Lyra heard everything. The crash of boots, the sharp sounds of weapons, Daniel's voice shouting, the thunder of gunfire. Her hands glowed faintly in the dark, her heart screaming to break her promise, to help him. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she whispered, "Please, Dad, don't leave me, please." Above, Daniel fought like a man reborn, his years of pain turning into strength. Every move was for her, every shout for her, every breath for the child who had given him back his purpose. He did not fight as a lonely mechanic, he fought as a father. But the hunters were many, and their weapons sharp. Daniel's strength was great, but his body was only human. Still, he stood unbroken, shouting one last time, "She is mine, and you will not take her." The night burned with chaos. The hunters stormed the small house, their boots pounding against the wooden floor, their weapons flashing. Daniel stood tall in the center, his shotgun booming, smoke filling the air. Each shot echoed with the weight of a father's heart, not a soldier's, not a fighter's, but a man who refused to surrender his child. Lyra crouched in the cellar, her small hands pressed over her ears, her glowing eyes streaming with tears. Every sound above made her chest tighten, the crash of furniture, the crack of wood, the harsh shouts of men. She wanted to stay hidden, she wanted to honor her promise, but the fear of losing him was too strong. Her body shook as her hands began to glow brighter than ever before, the power inside her rising like fire. Above, Daniel fought with everything he had. He swung tools, fired his weapon, pushed back men twice his strength, but there were too many, and his body was only human. A blow struck his shoulder, another hit his ribs, yet he stood unbroken. His voice roared, "She is my daughter, you will not touch her." The hunters snarled, their leader stepping forward, raising a strange weapon that hummed with deadly energy. "This is your last chance, old man," he said coldly. "Hand her over or you die tonight." Daniel spat blood, his eyes blazing. "Then I die a father," he growled. At that moment, the cellar hatch burst open. Lyra rose from the shadows, her small body trembling, but her eyes glowing like two burning stars. Her hands blazed with light, filling the broken room with a strange, otherworldly power. "Stop," she cried, her voice shaking the walls. "You will not hurt him. You will not take me." The hunters froze, their weapons raised but their faces pale at the sight. The air itself seemed to tremble around her, the broken furniture mending, shattered glass pulling itself back into the windows. Even Daniel's bleeding wounds closed slightly, the light touching him like a gentle hand. Daniel stared at her in shock and awe. "Lyra," he whispered, his heart breaking with pride and fear. "What are you doing?" She turned to him, tears glowing on her cheeks. "I cannot let you stand alone, Dad. You gave me a home. Now I will protect it." The hunters recovered, their leader shouting, "Take her alive." They surged forward, but Lyra lifted her small hands, the globe bursting into a wave of light. The force knocked the men back, their weapons scattering, their bodies slamming into walls. The room shook as if the earth itself bent to her will. Daniel shielded his eyes from the brilliance, his voice calling, "Lyra, stop, you'll destroy yourself." But she stood firm, her power pouring out, not wild this time, but focused, controlled by the strength of her heart. The hunters crawled to their feet, fear in their eyes now. They stumbled back toward the door, dragging their wounded with them. The leader glared, but even he could not stand against the blinding storm. Finally, the black vehicles roared to life, speeding away into the night. The forest swallowed their engines, leaving only silence behind. The light from Lyra's hands faded slowly, her body swaying with weakness. Daniel rushed forward, catching her before she could fall. She leaned into his chest, her small voice trembling. Did I do wrong?" Daniel held her tightly, his rough hands shaking. "No, child," he whispered, his voice breaking. "You saved us both. You saved our home." Lyra closed her eyes, relief washing over her tired face. For the first time, she had used her power not with fear, but with love, and for the first time, she felt truly safe. The house was broken, the windows cracked, the walls scarred, but the fire still burned. Daniel sat with her in his arms, his eyes staring into the flames. He knew the hunters would return one day, stronger, angrier, but he also knew they would never break what had been forged tonight. Days passed and slowly the wounds healed. Daniel rebuilt the broken parts of the house. Lyra helped in her quiet way. Sometimes she used her hands to repair wood and metal. Sometimes she only brought laughter to the silence. The small house on the edge of town no longer felt empty. It felt alive. In the marketplace, people whispered about strange lights in the forest, about black cars that came and vanished. But Daniel kept his head down, protecting the secret that now lived under his roof. Lyra stayed hidden, yet her heart grew lighter. She had a place. She had someone who cared if she lived or died. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, Lyra sat on the steps, watching the sky turn gold. Daniel joined her, lowering himself slowly, his old bones creaking. She looked up at him, her glowing eyes soft, and whispered, "Thank you for choosing me." Daniel placed his rough hand on her head, his voice deep and steady. "No, Lyra. Thank you for giving me a reason to live again." The forest was quiet, the fire warm, and for the first time in many years, Daniel smiled. He had not just taken in an alien girl, he had found a daughter, and Lyra, cast out by cruelty, hunted by strangers, finally had a home. A new home built not on blood, not on fear, but on love. And though the world outside still waited with danger, inside their small house there was peace. Inside their small house there was family.